Hello, welcome to the Game Dev Local podcast. I'm your host, Carina, and I'm here with Conway. We're going to talk about some really fun stuff today. So just to start off then, Conway, would you like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background? I think freelance games writing is a good place to start.
Hi, I'm Conway Sutton. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a freelance games writer, narrative designer, and I've been in it for about the past year and stuff. So this wasn't at all where I sort of expected myself to end up. 6 years ago, I started medical school, and so you can see I've taken quite a turn since then.
Yes, that's different.
But I've always written a huge amount as sort of my main hobby and interest. I've always played a lot of games. During my second year of medical school, I became quite disabled. I wasn't able to physically complete my training in medical school, and so I switched to English with creative writing, partly because you can do a lot of that from bed, to be honest, which I was spending a lot of time in. I loved it. And I was really interested in sitcom writing. That was what I did my dissertation on. That's the sort of thing I was practicing writing scripts for. But coincidentally, during my last year of university, I got really into a particular video game called Monster Prom and began modding that game just like constantly. Like it was my big obsession. I can remember waiting outside a job interview, like waiting for the interview to begin, and I was like writing my mod script on my phone instead of preparing for the job interview. That's how like into like making these scenes and like writing I was. So anyway, around the time I graduated, the opportunity to apply to write at Beautiful Glitch, who make Monster Prom, came up, and so they ended up taking me on as a freelancer, and I did a little bit of freelance writing for MonsterCon, which is the fourth game in the series. And I discovered that game writing is a job. There's an industry, there's a whole games industry. Who'd have known it?
It's amazing, isn't it?
And coincidentally, I moved to Guildford around that time for my girlfriend's work. And it turns out Guildford is obviously a really big hotspot for games, which I'd never heard about. And I managed to kind of get involved in the local scene, I guess you can call it, community. And I've just kind of really fallen in love with it all since then. And so that's what I've kind of spent the past year doing, and what I hope to make my kind of future career doing now.
That sounds exciting. It sounds a little bit like you accidentally fell upon all of this, really. This wasn't something that you'd set out to do. It was just kind of like you found a passion, and then you realized actually you could make a job or a career out of it.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, about 18 months ago, I just would not have considered this at all. And I've been exceptionally lucky, I think, to kind of have got the experience that I have in such a short time. And some of that has been through like paid work with, I've worked on the Monster Prom game. I've been working on another game called Ascend with a team called Miami Avalon, who I met at the Guildford Games Festival, and sort of got hired for that and stuff. I've also been doing like game jams, attending events and stuff like that. So it's definitely been, the past year has been like information overload. Like I remember back in February, I went to my first games event and I was meeting people and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm a tech artist." And I'd be like, "I've never heard of that. Please tell me about your job." "I'm a producer." "I thought that was for movies. What does that mean?" Like all that sort of thing. And I spend pretty much every evening just like binging like game development YouTube and stuff. Just it almost feels like I'm trying to catch up in learning everything there is. But I just find the whole world so fascinating. So I've been really enjoying it so far. And very much the people as well have been like a huge kind of draw to working in this industry, I feel.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you said you'd met someone at an event as well. Did you find like networking is something that comes easy when you went to these kinds of things and started talking and getting opportunities through there?
I was really surprised. I never would have thought I was like a networking person, but I guess it turns out to just be like talking and like making friends, but at work.
And being passionate about the stuff as well. Just genuine passion, I think, shines through, and a lot of people can tell when you genuinely enjoy something.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what I was saying about loving like the community of games and stuff is I love attending events, and I just like, awesome, I'm at a building, there are like 300 people here, all of them have stuff that I really like in common with me, and they are here to also talk about it. let's spend the holiday talking to cool people who do like awesome stuff. And sometimes work comes out of that. Sometimes you just make like a new friend or a connection, or you learn something interesting. I've really like taken to that aspect of it. I didn't expect to, but it's been a really good part of working in games in my experience.
It's really good. Yeah, I think it's a good thing having a lot of experience in a very short amount of time. I've had a similar experience. I was kind of looking a little bit, not stalking, just looking into who was going to be a guest. And I was like, I think I started freelancing about a month before you did.
We're in it together then.
Yeah, and I've had the same experience. I was just like, okay, let's do this. I've had a very extensive gaming industry background to start with, but I'd never considered, the fact that I could do this on my own. I could make it, my own thing. And I started going to events, started talking to people, networking, got very passionate about indie games in particular, because I come from more of a bigger gaming industry background. I used to work at Ubisoft, for example, more AAA games, the bigger ones. And then indie games are just, you get to talk to the whole team, like the producers,
it's one of the best parts.
It's so good. Everyone's so passionate.
Yeah. I mean, so one of my absolute favorite games is called The Sexy Brutale by Cavalier Studios, and I knew that they were based in Guildford, and I was at an event and people were talking, and then someone who I'd met before months ago happened to mention he worked at Cavalier Studios, and everyone else was like, huh, what? And I was like, you made The Sexy Brutale? You worked on my favorite game ever? And like, I think I scared everyone by being too excited, but I was like, I speedrun that game. My friend is number one speedrun in the world, and actually we found this one like time skip bug, and oh my god, and my theories about the prologue, like the dialogue, and actually that line was actually talking about a reference in like the third act, and but it was just like, yeah, awesome. I meet people who like work on stuff that really inspires and speaks to me like all the time, and that's the kind of an amazing thing about the games industry. I feel you're only ever a couple of like connections away from someone who probably made your favorite thing.
I know. I think this is something I talked to Jarves about when I had one of my first podcasts, and she was like, it's such a small world in this industry. You know someone who knows someone who's known someone, or made or done something that you enjoy or love, or oh yeah, I know this person, oh I recommend this person for this thing, and oh they do great this kind of stuff. And when you go to events, you spot so many people that you're like, oh yeah, there's such and such, oh there's this game that I like wishlisted yesterday or something on Steam, they're like in the indie booth area. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I really felt that. I attended Adventure X the other week. I think it was about 2 weeks ago now or something. And I was a bit nervous because it was my first time going. It's like a bit more expensive than other events I've been to. And I hadn't made a plan to go with anyone in particular. So I kind of walked in like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know who's going to be here. I don't know what's happening. And like within 10 seconds, someone who I'd met like the previous month was like, oh, hi, Conway. Hey, here's a pen to like sign in on this thing, and like, let's walk in together and blah, blah, blah. And then I walk in and I'm like, oh, it's that game that I recognize. It's that game that I recognize. Oh, I'm on a Discord server with that person. Oh, my mentor from Limit Break's here. And it turns out this person is my, well, what we're calling miblings, mentor siblings, being mentored by the same person. Like it's, like, I don't know, I was talking to one of my friends from Guildford, and I was like, hey, it was actually only 11 months ago I met you and the rest of our friends for like the first time, and just people can be so welcoming, and I think happy to help you and tell you about how things work and stuff. Like I've had a lot of talks with other freelancers or other game writers and people in that industry and stuff, where I've just gone like, I don't know anything, I'm brand new, do you have any wisdom? And they're like, yes, I have so much wisdom, and I will kind of happily impart it all to you and stuff. And I don't know, I think it's a really wonderful thing that you can get in this industry, and that's really kind of helped me want to keep going with the games writing, and kind of so like I had a day job in like marketing and stuff, working in an office, and everyone was very nice, and I liked all my
Mm-hmm.
coworkers and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I always and I felt the same when I've had like other jobs and stuff in the past, just working in sort of a, I don't know, quote unquote regular job or something, where I'm like, everyone here is
Mm-hmm.
nice. They do not want to hear my super in-depth like analysis of like this one item description I found in Baldur's Gate that I am convinced is a reference to my favorite Joanna Newsom
Yeah.
song, because if you like search this particular quote on Google, the only two results for it are the song and the item. Like, no, like my coworkers are very nice. They did not want to hear that. They did not think that was like interesting. And then it's like, I go to Adventure X and I'm like, do you want to hear my theories about this one item in Baldur's Gate? And they're like, yes. And also here are my theories about item descriptions from Baldur's Gate or something. And it's just kind of that feeling of like, I don't have to hide who I am as, well, I don't know, that's dramatic. You know, I wasn't hiding who I was from other people. It's, I can share the things that I'm excited and passionate about with people because those are things that like connect me to the people I'm meeting rather than like separate me or like show that I'm not interested in the same things as people around me.
Yeah. I think that's very beautiful, because I think I've had similar experiences in the past when I've had jobs that have not been creative. And as I would use your word as normal, I feel, yeah, it was just very sort of standard, you know, nothing to say against those people who have those jobs or those environments at all. But it's like, you know, when you don't quite vibe with the people around you, and, you know, you find, for me, I find that having that as my job as well as my personal life, being able to, you know, go into a very long sort of 20-minute talk about this particular item or a theory or a connection to something, is just so valuable to have in both work life and my personal life. And when I have that work life that's not allowing me to do that, I'm like, I walk in there and I'm like, okay, can't do the things that I normally enjoy doing. I'm just kind of here to do a thing and then leave again. But now it's like, it's all just everything. And I think a lot of people are scared of that, to become freelancers, because then you're going to be working on something you're passionate about and love, but also do it in your spare time, which can seem scary, to have your entire 100% of your life just be around that. But for me, it hasn't really been a negative. Certainly not in my freelance time, because there's a lot more, as you probably know, freedom to work around yourself with others.
And I know I definitely feel that with like, it can feel a bit intense to so like I don't have a day job at the moment, and so most of my time is either, if I've got client work, I'm doing that, and if I don't, I might be job hunting or like, you know, looking for more freelance clients, or I don't know, learning more about game dev, or, you know, like game stuff, or working on my own projects and stuff. Like I do game jams. I'm been doing Limit Break, and as part of that, part of my mentorship, I've been sort of working on smaller little projects to expand my skills, that sort of thing. And so sometimes it does feel like, okay, game stuff is my life. And then sometimes I sit down at the end of the day and it's like, okay, and then I turn on like my Switch or Steam or something, and I'm like, no, there's more work. I'm like, I can't turn off the like analytical brain and stuff. But so sometimes that kind of feeling can get a little bit intense and stuff. But I think that is also where like I don't know, I do other things, like I'm part of like a local choir where like some people know that I work in games and stuff, but that's kind of not the main topic of conversation and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Most people, it's a whole range of people, and it's nice to go and do something like physical and like connect with my community and stuff, or, you know, like just get out the house, go talk to one of like my other friends and that sort of thing. So it definitely can be kind of challenging to try and find that balance. But it also, yeah, it's nice to have that freedom of like, okay, and I don't have to put on my like, again, quote unquote normal person face for like 8 hours 5 days a week or something. Even around people that you like, even if you like your coworkers and stuff, it can sometimes that can be heavy in itself and stuff. It's a different sort of intensity. And yeah, no, I definitely don't regret having the freelance thing. I probably, to be completely honest, I did like lose my day job in the summer, and yeah, I probably wouldn't have chosen to go like full time freelance at
Mm-hmm.
this point, like so soon and stuff. Like the amount of freelance work I have is very much not full time.
Mm-hmm.
Is Yeah, like I'm very lucky to have like a partner who is able to support me and stuff. I'm lucky to have savings. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
looking for other work and stuff. I don't know. I guess I say for like transparency in case like people see like, oh well, Conway's only been freelancing a year and is doing fine. I should like go all in on
Yeah.
that. And it's like, take your time. Don't jump directly
Mm-hmm.
into it. I am probably going to try and get a like day job again to just make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that sort of thing. It's definitely can be stressful to try and find that balance. And there's also been a
Yeah.
lot more sort of like admin and
Oh yeah.
bureaucracy type things at the moment, trying to figure out contracts, trying to figure out bank
Mm-hmm.
accounts and payment and taxes and all of
Oh
that sort of
gosh,
thing.
yeah.
Even just things like, oh my God, I have to have like a website that doesn't look rubbish and, actually promote myself. It's like, it
Mm-hmm.
feels rubbish to be like I'm promoting myself, but it's kind of what you do need to do as a freelancer and stuff. Even things like, oh my God, I've got to like order a fresh batch of business cards before this
I
event
know,
or
right?
whatever. It's sometimes all the little tasks can like add up, and it's not always stuff that I got into doing this because I'm, not to brag, good at writing and I like it and stuff. I did not get into this because I am good at business, but that is what you have to also do as a freelancer.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess again, that's why like probably why people are sort of like attracted to working in like agencies or like in-house positions. But especially for like a writer, it seems like a kind of permanent writer in-house position seems pretty rare and few and far between and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
understandably. Yeah, so
Yeah.
sort of definitely trying to manage all of those kind of things can be one of the trickier parts I've found so far.
I think that's a very valid point to make, because I think a lot of people at the moment, with how lately the gaming industry has lost a lot of people, and many studios and studios have been shutting down, a lot of people that have been going freelance or have been freelance is kind of saying this is an alternative, like this is what you can
Mm-hmm.
do, but often fails to really list all of these things that are, unseen extras,
Mm-hmm.
which is you now, unless you, and very few will have the funds to have an accountant or an
Mm-hmm.
admin rep or a personal assistant to sort it out. It's all falls on you, and you realize all of a sudden, like you say, taxes, website,
Yeah.
self-marketing, all of this stuff that was, quote unquote done for you when you're in a system,
Mm-hmm.
now is up to you, and you realize that you're good at some things and you're not so good at others. And I'm like, I am
Yep.
terrible at self-promotion. I'm like, there's no point unless I've been like really proud of something I've done, where I'll be like, yeah, I'm good at this, this is awesome. So putting it out there and being like, hey, you should come
Yeah.
to me because I
It
am quote unquote great at this. So
definitely
yeah,
feels unnatural and stuff at times.
does.
Especially I don't know, I guess I think a lot of people, especially women, are kind of like, this isn't groundbreaking on you by any means, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are sort of socialized to like, no, don't put yourself out there too much. Don't be bragging. It feels bad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I quote a price to a client and I'm like, oh my God, that was way too much. But actually, when you do the
Uh-huh.
maths and stuff, it's like, no, I'm actually not charging a crazy
Mm-hmm.
amount and stuff,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I don't know, I thought I wasn't very good at self-promotion. I have started, when I run into people, them going, oh, I recognize you from LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh God, I don't think I post that much, do I? But
Wow.
I was like, I don't know if I want to be known for LinkedIn. I don't like LinkedIn that much, but I'm
It's
on there quite a lot because unfortunately it's useful quite a lot.
That's it. It's
So I
like,
don't know how to feel
where
about
else would
that
you
one.
go?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel so like people are like, oh, do you want like blue sky? And I'm like, I'm really sorry. The only social media I have is LinkedIn, and even that's too much for me. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
um that sort of thing. But I don't know. No, I'm mostly joking about LinkedIn. I know there's a lot of rubbish on there. There's a lot of like good stuff as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it is nice being able to like catch up with what everyone's been doing, and it's where I found out about a lot of opportunities and
Mm-hmm.
things. And Oh yeah, no, the other thing I was going to say with like the freelancing and stuff is also I've been very lucky to like I've received a grant in the past year from like my university. I know that there are
Oh.
grants out there and stuff. So like I received I think it's called the Start Pathway funding. So like I went that's probably like specific to the University of Southampton, but that was a £500 grant to sort of help me launch as a freelancer. And so I used that to get like business cards and attend a lot of the industry events that I have been to in the past year. I probably could not have afforded without that grant and stuff. And I've actually just recently applied for like a second round of that grant, like last week or something. And so that I basically only know about because I was like sad enough to sign up for like the student enterprise newsletter like ages ago and stuff. But I've had people tell me about like they've received grants from like the council or like different bodies and stuff. And I don't know a huge amount about all that, but there is a not like there's loads of money sloshing around or anything, but there is a little bit more support than you kind of initially think. Like, you know, I was able to access the grant that I did because I was an alumni. If you're working, especially like in the arts and things, if the council does have arts funding, they can sometimes be putting funding towards that and stuff, I've heard. So there definitely are like options to look into, especially if people are like wanting to try out freelancing, but maybe feel like they can't justify that initial cost of like getting cards or a website or that sort of thing to make you look like a professional, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's difficult, definitely, if you don't have that, like, I find that quite a few freelancers that I've spoken to have kind of fallen into it accidentally, a little bit out of circumstance that were out of their control, and they haven't really built up the buffer or the savings to like properly initiate the entire process. So they're kind of just like scrambling, you know, to get stuff done. And I've since realized for myself as well, I kind of made that decision after I was like, okay, I'm fatigued from being in full-time employment and just kind of wanted to do my own thing. And I just kind of went for it, and I had very little savings, and I was like, I'm just going to make it work. And my plan B was, Mum and Dad, I'm coming home. That was kind of my worst case scenario, but I had a lot of people backing me up saying, we know that you're good at what you do. You could definitely make it as a freelancer. So there was a scramble in the beginning to like make funds and ends meet. And I realized since that there's actually startup funding and grants as well. I think there's like business grants or, you know, little bits that will help someone start off on their own, like you say, making a professional website, because that's a client's due diligence is to research the person they're about to hire, and if they find no online footprint or a portfolio,
it's a little bit suspicious.
It's like, who is this person?
Yeah, and I would say, like, you know, I was using a website as an example. I do actually still use a free website. I use Cars at the moment and stuff.
Oh yeah,
I think that's, I mean, like we're going to talk about like disability representation later on and stuff. I think that is one of the challenges in representation, both as in like the what we get in games and the people making games, is that it can be like, everyone knows this is a very difficult industry to break into and stuff. And it's, you know, the statistics just are like people from less privileged backgrounds are just less likely to be able to break in and stuff. It is a very like white middle class male dominated industry as it is and stuff, and also extremely like able-bodied dominated and stuff. And even if you kind of want to kind of forge your own path via like a freelancing route and stuff, again, if that takes a lot of savings, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but like, you know, disabled people are significantly less likely to have like a kind of comfortable chunk of savings compared to like able-bodied people. And so it just, yeah, the fact that getting freelancing can be a great way into the industry and stuff. Or I don't know, I don't want to phrase it like freelancing is a path to working in a studio and stuff. Freelancing can be people's entire careers and stuff. It is a career path in its own right and stuff, but it can be an option for sort of starting out that might be more accessible in some ways to people than getting hired directly at a studio. But still doesn't mean that it is necessarily a accessible route overall, because of the sort of slowness and the fact that you do, it's very difficult to make a living off for, like, especially when you're starting out. It does really help to have a good support network, a good savings buffer, and that is all stuff that people from like less privileged backgrounds are a lot less likely to have. And yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like difficult to solve because it is about the sort of systematic overall problems with like just the way the world is set up a little bit and things. And so there are, you know, plenty of like very talented, skilled people doing great work and stuff who maybe it is just hard for them to even get going, even as a freelancer, because you need time to put together like a portfolio, you need time to sort out clients, you need time to do all of the admin associated with freelance, so that even if you have people who are willing to hire you for freelance work, you still need to physically have that time in your week to be a freelancer. And if you are having to work full-time or multiple jobs, and or you have a lot of like other responsibilities or caring or health issues, then that is all just stuff that is going to make it more challenging for people to potentially like break into games and stuff, I think. And again, like I mentioned, I had to stop studying medicine because of my disability and stuff. I was very lucky that just before my final year of university, I had surgery, which I learnt to walk again afterwards, or I could walk a little bit, but it significantly improved my mobility and stuff. I could hardly leave the house without a wheelchair beforehand during most of my years of university. I can like walk around now. Like I use crutches, I use a walker, but I'm up and about, and I just for my surgery, I could maybe do about like 3 hours of work in a day, spread across the entire day, like from my bed, sort of doing in small chunks. And I don't know how I got through my degree like that. And then after my surgery, it was, I don't know, I was just like, oh my God, it's like the amount of time in a day is doubled for me, because I can just physically do a lot more. And that enabled me to do extra things like my modding, and that kind of got me path into working in games and stuff. And so it just there are a lot of like challenges and barriers for people, especially people with disabilities and stuff, that kind of make it a lot harder for the games industry to become more diverse, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, this is a topic that I've recently wanted to educate myself a bit more about after I talked to Jarves, and she talked about the disability and how it is really difficult for her, for example, to go networking at industry events, because accessibility isn't always thought of first and foremost. It's kind of a bit of an afterthought, and having places that have options for wheelchair access, or even maybe areas that are for, you know, for chronic illness, if you can't be on your feet all day, but you really want to be at an event. And then if there's an area for you to sit down and relax without it being, you know, like the influencer or creators area, it's more quiet. It's like where you can go and sit down and relax. I think she mentioned one of her experiences was having to be wheeled out at the back of a building and take a kind of the back door through very like not very sort of public
100%. That is
through the event and in.
Was
and I was
it
like,
Develop by any chance? Because Develop is particularly bad for that. But honestly, it happens to me all over the place.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How do you find going to events?
I mean, challenging, and that's with my current level of mobility. If I hadn't had my surgery, that has kind of restored my health to the level it is, and I am still definitely not like 100% able-bodied. Like I have fatigue, I have like chronic pain, I can't be on my feet for ages. I am now able to attend events without using a wheelchair full time. I can use like my crutch, or I recently got a walker, and that was really, really helpful. It's challenging enough like for me presently, and I kind of have a lot more mobility than many other disabled people who have like physical mobility challenges and stuff. In the state that I was in before my surgery, I would have found it extremely challenging to attend a lot of the events I go to and stuff. And that's partly a sort of personal thing of like, well, I would have been very exhausted and in pain and that sort of thing. And it's also just things like I go somewhere and I bring my wheelchair and the lift to get into the lecture theatre to watch the like panel isn't working. And luckily I'm able to stand by myself. So I'm able to like stand up and just ask some random strangers, hey, can you take my extremely expensive and like precious wheelchair? Can you pick up this item and carry it over there for me, and also don't break anything or mess with anything? Thank you. And like people are very willing to help, but it's not an equitable experience of the event and stuff. Or yeah, like I mentioned, like I had a great time at Develop. It was so exhausting. I actually became quite ill after Develop, partly because of my kind of exhaustion of like dealing with the like 2 days I was there or something. I mean, I had the time of my life, but I extremely overdid it. And it I actually, one of the days I tried not to use my wheelchair because I was having so much trouble navigating the hotel, because you have to go through such long back routes and stuff to access the lifts and to be able to get around and stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do it on my feet. And then just there's nowhere to sit. It's a really huge building, and it's not always like event organizers' faults and stuff, because a lot of it just is like a lot of buildings are not properly accessible, but also things like and it can be challenging to kind of balance different needs and stuff. So like there have been events that I have attended for other marginalized groups and stuff, not disability focused, but other groups. And if I had been reliant on my wheelchair as I had been before my surgery, I just physically could not have attended that event because the venue just was not accessible and stuff. But it can be a real like challenge to resolve that, because so for example, if I'm attending a like LGBTQ focused event, they want to have it in a venue that is LGBTQ friendly and stuff, and that's understandable. Like it's important for like the safety of the people attending and stuff. But if that venue is an old building or just not well designed, like I mean, a lot of the time it is older buildings, especially because like you know, it's harder to adapt them and stuff. But if that venue isn't wheelchair accessible, then it's difficult balancing those needs and stuff. And then because if no one using a mobility aid shows up to the event, the organizers can be like, oh, well, disabled people don't come to these events anyway, so don't need to hold it in a disabled thing. It becomes a sort of vicious cycle where like people don't see disabled people at industry events, so they're like, oh, well, there aren't disabled people in the industry, so we don't need to spend that much.
Not made sure
but it's like, well, yeah, it's because you didn't open the door to us. And again, I don't know, it's something like I struggle with myself, where it's like, yes, I'm still disabled, but I have a lot more that I can do compared to where I used to be, and that is partly just because I am physically able to do these things, and maybe I wouldn't have had the sort of success and opportunities that I have so far if I wasn't able to kind of attend these face-to-face networking events, which do seem to be where, like, I don't know, at least me personally, I have definitely found like the most benefit. And so I think online spaces are really great. I mean, I got my first like games work out of an online space. I've never met those people that I work with in person at all. But there definitely are a lot of benefits to like in-person meetings and connections and stuff. And I think a lot more needs to be done to try and make these spaces accessible to disabled people. And I think that can also look like different things and stuff. So like, you know, obviously my disability is very like mobility focused. That is where a lot of my experience and knowledge is focused and stuff. But some like, I've forgotten how to say that word, neurodivergencies, different ways of being neurodivergent might, you know, there's individuals kind of tend to decide whether they consider themselves as disabled for the kind of being neurodivergent or not. But so for example, someone might be autistic and like really struggle with loud noises and crowded spaces and I don't know, bright flashing lights, and like where does every like gaming social happen? in a crowded bar full of like loud drunk people and like the loudest music you've ever heard and stuff. And it's like, this is an industry that, well, you know, is still challenging for like neurodivergent people as well and stuff, but an industry that does have a lot of neurodivergent people, just like anecdotally from what I can see, it seems to, or at least they are more open about it perhaps than in like other places I've worked and stuff. But these kind of very important networking events and stuff are not necessarily going to be accessible to people who have like sensory I don't know, I don't want to call it issues. That seems a bit like putting the blame on them. But people who would struggle with that kind of environment, there maybe isn't as much like diversity in like the sort of setting that these events are happening in to make it more welcoming to like a wider variety of people. And also, you know, there's lots of reasons why someone wouldn't want to be at an alcohol-focused event where like a lot of game dev meetings, like I've been to quite a lot of events that have an open bar, which like is great for me. I don't have to pay for my cider. But, you know, is that accessible to like a recovering alcoholic or, you know, someone who doesn't want to be around alcohol for like other reasons and stuff? There's just, I don't know. Yeah, accessibility is such like a wide and broad thing.
It
and
really
I guess
is, isn't it?
even here, I'm only kind of focusing on like physically attending a in-person networking event, which is one tiny subsection of accessibility within the industry. Like and even that can have a huge amount to do with it. I recently attended a really interesting panel about accessibility in games, but more from the players being able to interact with and access a game. A panel that was being held at the University of Surrey, and I've forgotten the names off the top of my head of everyone who attended that. I know that Kate from Dambusters was supposed to be there, but she was unfortunately ill. I believe I want to say his username is like Sightless Combat or something. They had people with like a range of disabilities and people doing research into different sorts of accessibility, and they were just sort of talking about ways of making games more accessible to people with a different range of disabilities and stuff. And that was really interesting because I've always, for a long time, had a lot of interest into accessibility, and that's been something that I've worked quite hard on like promoting and care a lot about. But my kind of accessibility advocacy has always been very focused on physical spaces because that is my experience. My disability does not interact with like my ability to play or enjoy video games and stuff. And so this was like a completely different area that I just do not know anything
not so
about.
Much like representation of disabilities in games, but more like the accessibility of games for anyone with a disability. Is that like controllers, how the game's setup is as well? I know there's certain things for like visuals.
Yeah, so one of the speakers, he's blind, and he was talking about especially about modding actually, and how like modding has been able to make a lot of games that were not designed to be accessible to like screen readers and blind players, how that's been able to like open up the variety of games that people are able to play a lot. Or like someone else, I think he was hard of hearing or deaf, something about that. And so talking about audio description, I guess, would be for like people who have trouble seeing and stuff, but just talking about different features for, so like, how do we make this game playable by someone who is blind? How do we make this game playable by someone who's deaf? It might be like controller support or enabling people to interact with the game in different physical ways. And it's definitely like an area that needs a lot more work, and kind of people who have lived experience with that topic being able to contribute and have it not be treated as an afterthought, but something that's like really baked into the process. And again, that was just really interesting to me because as a writer, I care a lot about like representation within the narrative and stuff like that. Something that's very important and interesting to me. Getting to write kind of characters with disabilities and narratives around that kind of thing is really interesting and important to me. But I hadn't really thought about so much about, could I have anything to do with the like player accessibility of it? And what was really interesting, one of the panel members, and I'm really sorry I've forgotten everyone's name off the top of my head, but he was saying, well, like, even as a writer, you could still perhaps contribute to the sort of like cognitive accessibility. So such as making sure that your writing's like easy to understand, perhaps having like explainers and thinking about people who might have like cognitive disabilities and how they can interact with your work. And just really like emphasizing that every role in making a game, like, it is everyone's responsibility to try and think about accessibility and push that forwards. And I thought that was really interesting as someone who especially has been focused on sort of narrative representation.
It's a completely different aspect of it. I hadn't even considered that in those terms and in that sense, in terms of the narrative. But that does make a lot of sense. I think one thing that I've tried to advocate for as a community manager in the past is when personally, I don't have any sort of physical disabilities, but I do find it sometimes, because I am slightly neurodiverse, or maybe very neurodiverse, having text and sometimes everything bleeds in together and I can't really see where I'm supposed to focus, but having clear indicators of, what is what. I love it when I get the option of having a really opaque, colourful thing behind subtitles, for example. And I always need subtitles because my auditory processing is not very great sometimes, and I'll mishear things, and I'm like, I'll refer to the subtitles, and then if it's just white text on no background, I'm like, for someone who's partially blind or can't see very well or need to focus or can't, color blindness, anything like this, and I'm like, this needs changing. I would advocate to be sure, like, we need to do this. But it's often, like you say, or like we've maybe talked a bit about, is not it being an afterthought, but being something that's just considered at the start of the process and throughout, rather than just, we should add this because it's been asked for, or some people are having trouble reading or hearing or seeing this. It's very, very fascinating stuff. I want to educate myself a lot more about it, especially when it comes to like physical disabilities and how they navigate the world of video games. Because what would, for example, anyone with like, I don't know, dexterous difficulties with hands or anything try and do a controller? I've seen various different pads that you can do. For example, instead of like controllers with joysticks, you can have like a pad that will do a specific action rather than 5 different buttons. So it's definitely
there's
possible.
a lot. I mean, there is just such like infinite variety in sort of how the human body can be and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we are like infinitely diverse, and there are sort of infinite ways of interacting with the world. And that's actually one of the things where I feel like disability in a sort of narrative and mechanical sense is very underutilized in video games, because disability is often about interacting with and navigating the world in perhaps a way that is different from what we think of as normal. And video games are, like, I don't know, not all about, but a lot of video games are about interacting with and navigating the world and stuff. And I feel like mechanics that make use of like the kind of unique way of navigating the world as a disabled person are an area that perhaps could be more explored, probably by people who know a lot more about game design than me, a writer. But but it's so difficult when you do have these infinite possibilities of like the type of person who is going to play your game and how they want to interact with your game. Of course, it's going to be very difficult to provide for all of those options, but I don't know, that doesn't mean you shouldn't make a stab at it, I guess.
Well, exactly. Yeah, something can be done. I'm sure there's some little bits that can be implemented that might be maybe not applicable to everyone, but applicable to the most, at least, and find some way of, doing that.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, while it's not my kind of area of expertise, like, I think what I do really want to do is try and tell more stories that do involve like disabled characters and kind of normalize that, because that is something that is just vastly underutilized and stuff, and I think has a lot of potential. Like, I was really excited when I saw the did you watch the Switch 2 like direct release or whatever?
I didn't know.
So when they announced the Switch 2, like, one of the features is, so like the Joy-Cons can like go on the table and you can use it like a mouse or something, which is like,
yeah.
I don't know, I didn't expect that. But what's really cool is that to showcase this new feature, they announced this new game, which I think it's called Drag X Drive. And it's a wheelchair basketball game where you control the wheelchair by like, you kind of mimic the action that you would make to really use your wheels,
So
but
you
with
would
the
do
mouse
this with the
and
Joy-Cons.
stuff, or like, so they're like on the table and you're like dragging them to like twist and control the wheelchair. And I just thought that was amazing. So like, I'm not a hugely sporty person, but I was really into playing wheelchair rugby while I was in university. It's the best sport in the world. And I haven't played wheelchair basketball, but I just, para sports are really cool. And I love that they made like, yeah, just exactly like I was saying, like such a perfect marriage of like the mechanics and the like way of using the wheelchair and stuff in the game. And then they made it cool and awesome because it's like, I don't know, kind of like Tron vibes or something. And I was just like, we need like more of that. Or I don't know, it's probably not even that good of an example, but I remember when I was a kid, one of my favorite Flash games was a game where you play as there's an old man who's using a wheelchair and he's got a guide dog that's and the dog like pulls him along, and it's sort of like a puzzle physics platformer where the dog can like pull the wheelchair along and then like dangle it off ledges to get to locations and that sort of stuff. And I wish I could remember what it's called because I loved this game when I was a kid.
Yeah, this sounds awesome.
But yeah, it was just like, I don't know, a fun little sort of like puzzle platformer, I guess, with like some kind of slightly funny, janky physics with like dangling this guy around and like wheeling him off things. And but yeah, like using the kind of unique setup of like a wheelchair and a guide dog to create like fun mechanics that like I remember sort of like 15 years later because they were unique and interesting and stuff. And yeah, and you know, it doesn't always have to be mechanical, like it can just be story-wise. I think games are kind of lacking in their disability representation at the moment. Like I had a really nice chat with Sally Beaumont at Adventure X, who she was giving a panel about comedy writing, but we quite literally bumped into each other and somehow ended up talking about like the challenges of, as a writer, of trying to get more disability representation into games and stuff. But there are some games that do it pretty well and stuff. Like one of my absolute favorites is Cozy Grove. Both games I think are pretty good on disabled representation.
I think I've heard of this one. Yeah.
It's like a really cute it's a little bit like Spiritfarer, but like a different format basically. But you're like a kid who washes up on an island and it's full of ghost bears and you have to like help them with quests to help them like move on to the afterlife. And it's very like cute and heartwarming. It's pretty funny. There's like customization, there's like decoration and animals and plants and stuff. I don't know. It's really fun. I have like 120 hours or something.
Nice.
But in both of the games, actually, I think they have pretty good wheelchair user representation in like an interesting way. And I also, well, I don't want to spoil it in case anyone's like not played or planning on playing, but I think the first one also has a kind of interesting like character that I read as a sort of like autism allegory, and I really like how they sort of change up the regular mechanics slightly to represent the kind of narrative where like it's less about you changing this autistic character, or like, you know, character that I was interpreting as autistic, I guess, and more about you learning to accept him for like who he is rather than trying to change him to act the way that you think he should,
and finding out how to interact with this person.
Yeah, kind of meeting him where he's at and not just enforcing like your way of interacting with the world on him, which I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe I am misphrasing, or you know, it's been like a couple of years since I played it, but that's kind of how I remember it. And I thought that was like an interesting one. Or not like a huge part of the game, but I mentioned a game called The Sexy Brutale earlier as one of my favorites and stuff. And like there's only about, God, I think like 8 characters in the game or something. I can't count off the top of my head. It's something like 8, under 10, I'm pretty sure. And like 2 of them are disabled, if I remember correctly and stuff. And it's just like, it's not a huge part of their characters or like the plot or anything. Like there's no, I guess there's one moment where like the blind character, she can't see that she's in danger. And so that's kind of used for tension, but it's not like her character thing is about being blind, it's actually quite easy to miss that she is and stuff. And then like another character has like a wheelchair later on and stuff. But it's just like, cool, in a really small cast, you've got like a pretty good percentage.
Yeah.
A lot better than like a lot of bigger games and stuff. And it's not in a way that's like important for the game. They just are.
Yeah, it's not at the forefront of, you know, the narrative isn't the disability.
Mm-hmm.
It's just representing it in as normal way as everyday life is for, I don't know if you're seeing them, but obviously I know that everyday life isn't normal for people with disability, but like not trying to make the plot around it as well in sort of like a forced manner, I guess.
Yeah. I think, you know, I think there's space for both. Like, I think there's space for narratives that are deliberately focused on an exploration of disability and that lived experience. And I think that can be really interesting. Like, I really enjoyed getting to recently write a character who, I like, it's not his main thing, but I did get to write a scene where he kind of talks about his feelings about using a wheelchair and people's reaction to it and stuff. And that was really like personal and exciting for me and stuff. And so I think there is room for stuff like that. And then there's also a lot of room for like, I don't know, it's just like normal. Like you don't have to make a big thing about it. Like I kind of feel like we're kind of getting there with like queer representation in some cases where like a character can just be gay without like that being their whole thing or the game being about that and stuff. I feel like we're kind of getting to that point. But we're still definitely pretty far off that for disabled characters and stuff. Like I guess I think a lot of people kind of feel like they need a reason for a character to be disabled. And I think there's a lot of I mean, when I talk to people and, you know, I don't go around like demanding, be like, hey, you, why didn't you put any disabled characters in this? Even as much as I would like to sometimes and stuff. But if I ever do kind of get talking on that topic with people, there's a couple of things that come up with like, I don't know. Yeah. Feeling like there's no narrative reason can be a barrier. People feeling like they don't know enough or they are scared of getting it wrong and stuff. And I do understand that because like, yeah, there are some video games that have like kind of offensive stuff about disabled people, to be honest. Like unintentionally, like to be honest, I hate to like slander it, but Stardew Valley, there's a scene that a lot of people find quite upsetting where the I think he's called George. There's like the old man and he uses a wheelchair. And there's a scene where another character, one of the villagers, moves him without his permission. And he is upset about this. And if you say that was wrong, don't move that man without asking, you lose like heart points with that villager. But if you say like, George, calm down, like she was helping, you shouldn't be mad, then you gain heart points. And so it's like, but that's like, no, you do not touch someone without their permission. Do not move a wheelchair user without their permission. It happens to me and it's scary. Like, how would you feel if someone picked you up in public? Like,
no,
it would
be,
it's not good.
It's
and
awful.
That's a like nice, cozy game that like everyone loves and stuff. But that's a pretty upsetting moment. Like, I've seen people online talk about like it, is like a challenging part of the game for them. It's a game that's supposed to be nice and cozy because it doesn't respect the autonomy of disabled people. And in order to have a good relationship with, I think it might be Penny. I don't know the Stardew characters super well. It's been a while since I played it.
Me neither.
But in order to have a good relationship with her, you have to side with her against the disabled person that she, under some definitions, assaulted and stuff. And it's just like, that stuff is so like baked in and not thought about that people don't like necessarily register when there is poor representation in that way and stuff. And it's just so no, I understand like people feel intimidated by trying to write these kind of stories and include these kind of stories in their games and stuff, but the solution is like talk to disabled people, work with disabled people, play and read and watch stuff made by disabled people, read like literature about it and stuff, like look into like the
educate
Cripborg
yourself,
movement,
just understand them,
that sort of thing. I don't know, it the same kind of responsibilities that you have with like representing anyone in a game and stuff, where like yes, it can be challenging, like making a game is challenging, telling a good story is challenging and stuff, but like all sorts of people play games, and all sorts of people deserve to kind of see themselves in the games that they play. And I mean, that's another huge point, customization. Like any game that has customization, extremely rare to have any kind of like mobility aid option. I mean, like how old is like The Sims? And like I'm pretty sure you still can't make your character use a wheelchair in like The Sims. Like how many buildings in The Sims are wheelchair accessible? I think none.
I was gonna say, yeah, because then they don't even have any building materials, I think, that are like, you know, to make your house accessible.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, you know, picking on The Sims in particular, just because that's one of the great, like, you can do anything, customize anything, have it super be how you want it, like, you know, play it your way kind of thing. It's not, yeah, it's just missing. And I don't know, but you know, you can have like a unicorn or something.
I know, yeah.
And you know, like I like The Sims. I'm not like saying it's a bad or horrible game because of it. It's just like a glaring error, missing thing, hole. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It is extremely noticeably absent only to the people who kind of know to look for its absence.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, that was like a huge amount of information. I think I warned you at the start. I'm a big talker.
It's what I wanted. It's what I needed. And I think for anyone that's listening or watching, take notes. I think I'll probably want to talk to you a bit more about this in the future as well. But that's time for us today. I've really enjoyed talking about this because you've opened my eyes a little bit more to not just representation in games, but also accessibility, you know, for playing video games. And yeah, it's been absolutely amazing chatting to you. If anyone wants to find you, I mean, your LinkedIn is
yeah, LinkedIn is basically the way.
From what I've heard.
It's the hot place to be.
Conway Sutton on there.
Conway Sutton, yeah, CONWAYSUTTON, and that is also my Discord handle if you want to message me there, or my email is conwaywrites@gmail.com. That's just all one thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, wow. Please say hi. I love to chat about any of these sort of topics, indie games, what you've been playing, disability representation especially.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really interesting and enjoyable.
Appreciate it so much. Yeah, thank you so much.